Hey everyone. Today we're diving into a story that is, well, just deeply ironic. Picture this, a nation of over 1,000 tropical islands, a paradise that's literally surrounded by the ocean, but it's facing the very real threat of running out of fresh water. And that's the huge question, right? How is that even possible? When you have the vast Indian Ocean stretching out in every direction, how can thirst be your biggest problem? Well, the answer lies in this really fascinating and incredibly delicate balance between nature, human demand, and our rapidly changing climate.
Okay, so first let's just set the scene. The Maldives is an archipelago, which is a stunning chain of about 1,200 coral islands. But here's the thing, this paradise is basically built on a geological knife edge. It makes it one of the most physically vulnerable nations on the entire planet.
And this number you see here, this is the core of that vulnerability. The average ground level across all those islands is just 1 to 2 meters above the sea. I mean, think about that. For most of the country, the land is barely taller than a person. That single fact is the key to understanding everything about the nation's struggle.
So, if there are no rivers or lakes, where in the world does their fresh water come from? Well, it turns out it comes from this hidden, natural reservoir right beneath their feet. It's a fragile gift from nature that is absolutely essential for life on these islands.
And it's called a freshwater lens. It all comes down to some pretty simple physics, really. You see, fresh water is less dense than salt water, so it doesn't just mix right away. Instead, it forms this kind of bubble, or a lens, that literally floats on top of the seawater that's soaking the ground below it.
The whole process is actually remarkably simple. First, rain falls on the island. Then, that rainwater soaks down through the porous coral ground. And because it can't mix with the much denser saltwater underneath, it just collects in this delicate lens-shaped pocket. This becomes the island's natural underground water tank.
But the main thing to remember here, the absolute key takeaway, is just how fragile this whole system is. It is a tiny, delicate reserve of fresh water. And you know what? It doesn't take much at all to throw it completely out of balance, which, unfortunately, is exactly what's happening right now. So this already fragile water supply is now getting squeezed from two different directions at the exact same time. It's creating a perfect storm for water insecurity.
On one side, you've got the human pressures. As the population grows, more and more fresh water is being pumped out from the ground. And then on the other side, you've got climate pressures. The ocean itself is rising, and it's becoming more violent, pushing in from the outside. All right, let's look at that first pressure. When you pump too much fresh water out of that lens, that's a process called over-abstraction, you actually shrink it. This basically creates a vacuum, and the heavier salt water that's underneath rises up and moves in to fill that empty space, contaminating the wells. That's saltwater intrusion.
And now for the second front. Climate change is causing sea levels to rise, which literally shoves that boundary between salt and freshwater further inland. At the same time, you're getting more intense storm surges that can just flood the islands completely, pouring salt water directly into the ground from above. So it's getting hit from below and from above.
So what actually happens when this delicate balance is finally broken and the wells start to turn salty? Well, the consequences are immediate, they're severe, and they affect every single aspect of daily life.
The most direct impact, obviously, is that the water becomes totally unusable. You can't drink it, you can't use it to grow food, and this forces communities to try and find other ways to survive. But every single alternative comes with its own huge set of problems.
The two main options are collecting rainwater and desalination. But just look at the catch for each one. Collecting rain is great until you hit a long dry spell. And desalination plants, the ones that turn seawater into freshwater, they are incredibly expensive, they need a ton of energy, and they're really hard to maintain on these small, remote islands.
And the problem just cascades from there. Water insecurity leads to major health and sanitation issues. It cripples local food production. It drives up the cost of living, because now water has to be bought or created. And it creates real inequality, because not every island has the resources to pay for these expensive solutions.
All of this brings us to the bigger picture, because the story of the Maldives isn't just about one island nation. It's a really powerful warning for coastal communities absolutely everywhere. This quote really sums it up perfectly. The Maldives is this crystal clear case study of how natural vulnerability, like being super low-lying, clashes with human activity and then gets massively amplified by climate change. Here's the most crucial point.
What's happening in the Maldives today is a direct preview of what could be happening in coastal cities and communities all over the world tomorrow. The islands are, quite literally, a canary in the coal mine, giving us this critical early warning of a future we all might share.
Their struggle to find water in the middle of a vast ocean is a profound lesson in just how fragile our most essential resources are. And it really leaves us with a vital question to think about. As we watch this all play out, are we ready for what might be coming to our own shores?